This is the first season of House of the Dragon. The Game of Thrones spin-off series brings you back to Westeros. At the time of Game of Thrones, 200 years ago, dragons were thought to be dead, but right now we're living in the golden age of dragons. The Targ have something like 12 of them. Our main character, Princess Ramirez Tarrian, is one of the dragon riders. She is a cool, strong-willed young girl who is a lot like Daenerys. Her father is the king of Aeris Tarrian, which is a peaceful and prosperous place right now. Everything's, except that there are some worries about the line of succession because he only has a daughter, Ramirez. Right now, it's common to skip over female heirs and go straight to the next male one, which would be the king's brother, Damon Tarrian. Now, Damon is a figure with a lot going on. He isn't a really bad person, but he does things his own way. For example, he was just given responsibility for the city watch. So, on the first night, he rounds up and kills every criminal in King's Landing. You guys are welcome. I ended crime. But right now, the queen is pregnant. So, they throw a big party in honor of the son they hope to have soon. The favorite is, of course, Prince Damon, but on this odd night, it's Sir Kristin Cole who wins. We'll talk more about him later. But sadly, giving birth is very dangerous, and both the mother and the baby don't make it. Sad times for House Tarrian. But everyone has their own way of dealing with loss. Like how Damon goes to a brothel and tells jokes about dead babies. Now, know that the king's hand is the second in command position. And this one is Oto Hightower, who likes King Varys and listens to his advice. He doesn't want King Damon, who will probably do whatever he wants. So Oto can't wait to tell everyone what Damon said. So King Buys, who is very angry with his brother, tells him not to fly and throws him out of the city. And in front of all the lords of the realm, he calls his daughter Rhaena the heir to the Iron Throne in a big public event. Now, Damon kind of doesn't care. He still acts like he's going to be king, so Rhaenyra has to fly in on Dragonback to put her uncle in his place. Now, Damon doesn't mind killing people, but he doesn't want his niece to fight him. In fact, he likes her a lot. So it's like, okay, fine, you're the heir. Now, King argues is still pretty young, and people are telling him, hey, you should get a second wife so you have more support. The best marriage proposal for Tars comes from Corlys, the sea snake, who is the captain of his ships. In fact, he is married to the king's cousin, Rhaena Tarrian, the female heir who was passed over in favor of Vas. So marrying their daughter is a bit of a family affair. But it's good for the Targ. Keep the family tree. The only trouble is that their daughter is still way too young to get married. In politics in the Middle Ages, you had to get that guard bull locked down early, but Varys isn't feeling it. But Aeris Hightower, who is the daughter of the hand of the king Oto Hightower, is also a surprise choice. Also, Rhaenyra's best friend's dad says, hey, the king is really upset about his wife's death. You should go give him comfort. Ugh, man. But Alicent's a loyal daughter. She helps the king start building his model city, and they start talking. So, there's a jump of 2 years because the king married Alicent and had a son right away. Everyone thinks he is now the heir, which is awkward for Rhaena, but her dad says, no, girl, you're my heir. I won't change my mind. How does Damon feel about this? Well, he's been at war in the Stepstones with a pirate named the Crab Beater, and he gets an awesome action scene where he basically takes on the whole crab food army by himself. Now he's back in King's Landing with a new haircut and an apology, and his brother forgives him right away. The Targs are happy, and to Rhaenyra, he's the cool uncle who sneaks her out of the castle for a night on the town, but they end up in a brothel. Where are you taking me, uncle? And Game of Thrones wouldn't be the same without a little bit of incest. But that's not weird for Tars. It's natural, and they're both feeling it. So, good luck to you. But Damon decides not to do it for one reason or another. It leaves Rhaenyra in the dark, so when she gets home, she is all worked up. Do something with her bodyguard, Sir Kristin Cole. Yes, Rhaenyra put Kristin Cole in the king's guard because he is the best fighter and the hottest. Kristin Cole won the competition. Now, it's against the rules to hit on your bodyguard, but these two are in the mood, so they make out. But there are many spies in King's Landing who report to the Handcar, and he would much rather have his grandson rule than reign. So he's glad to get back into the mix. Your daughter and brother were caught in a brothel together, so Vas has to remove him again after one day of being friends again. Now he sends Alicent to talk to Rhaen, like, hey girl, did you bone? Your uncle Rhaena says, yeah, we both went into the brothel, but not at the same time. I promise that I didn't kill my uncle. Which is technically true, but it's a pretty big lie because she almost did, and later that night she slept with Kristin. But even if they didn't do it, just the idea would ruin her because they still have that outdated moral system where girls having sex before marriage spoils them. But Rhaenyra is like, hey, dad, check your sources. Where'd this story come from? And the king is like, what? You are right, dude. You're going to like your child more than other people. I have no choice but to fire you. Alicent is sad to see your father go, and she doesn't understand why my friend Rhaena would try to get you fired. But her dad is all, hey, Rhaena is no longer your friend. She wants to be queen too. And when you play Game of Thrones, you either win or you die. This is to put an end to any theories. Time is up. They go back to the Valerian after Rhaena gets married. Their son Lear is about the same age as Rainier, and the two get along well, but she's like, "Yo cousin, I know you're gay. That's alright. This is a marriage based on politics. We can love anyone we want." So Rainier gets to keep her secret boyfriend, and Lena gets to keep his. "You're fine with being my secret lover, Kristin Cole, right?" But Kristin Cole doesn't think that's okay. He has an old-fashioned moral code that makes him feel like a bad person. But now it's time for a wedding, which, as you know, never ends in Game of Thrones. Well, the first thing that goes wrong is when Queen Alicent shows up late and tries to steal the show from Rain by walking out in a bright green dress. Green is the color, which might be a mistake. When they call the flags to war, the Hightowers like to use fire. Yes, she has taken her father's advice to heart and is now very angry at Rain, who used to be her best friend. And another schemer, Aeris, the strong son of the new hand of the king, has affected her. And he's happy to talk about how Rain drinks tea in the morning. Alicent looks into it, and Kristin Cole, feeling bad, admits it right away. Alicent thinks it's incredibly unfair that Rainier can do whatever she wants while she's been doing nothing but banging her gross old. Now, when Mr. Lane, our secret boyfriend, shows up, things get worse at the wedding. Kristin, like, "Hey, I guess we're both royal paramours," but this just makes Kristin mad. And oh, he beats this guy to death for no reason. Dude's got serious anger control problems. Now, boom, we jump ahead 10 years. The roles are being played by grown-ups. Rhaen gives birth to her third son on a happy day. But when I look at their kids, I don't see much of Lear in them. They are similar to the new commander of the city. Look at Harwin Strong. Yeah, she has a happy open marriage with Lear. And she has a happy secret with Harwin Strong. But someone isn't happy. Queen Alicent seems to have spent the last 10 years worrying about mean girls and Rhaena, but King Vas is excited to meet his new child and, dude, you're not that old. What are you doing? Yeah, unfortunately, the king has a terrible disease that can only be stopped by cutting off parts of the body. Alicent tries to tell her husband that Ramirez's kids aren't Lena Oars, but he doesn't want to hear it because if it were true, he'd have to kill them all. So, for now, there are a bunch of Targ princes growing up together and learning important Targ things like how to train your dragon. So Kristin Cole is the boys' swords coach, and he is now best friends with Queen Alicent because they are both nurses and their grudges against Rhaen. So he really likes Alicent's children a lot. Harwin Strong has to break in and save him, and Sir Kristin finally says it out loud. Wow, you protect those boys like you're their father. So, boom, Harwin catches that jerk. But that brings a lot of unnecessary attention to their situation, which is a shame. Harwin should probably leave town. Now, Harwin's dad is like, "Look, with all these rumors, it's best to give your resignation to the king." Aeris says, "Hey, those are just rumors. Resign or say no." And this makes Alicent feel bad. She eats dinner with Aeris Strong, her new news pal. She thinks it was wrong of him to fire her dad. The same thing, having grandkids who are royal. She says, "I wish my dad were back." And Laris says, "Well, Queen, I'll do what you want." So, his dad drives Harwin home to their castle Harren Hall, which is said to be cursed. And maybe it's because his dad and brother die in a fire that night. He says, "Oh no, that's terrible. So, dude, did you just kill your family?" He's like, "Did I?" Over the years, he continues to be Alicent's unofficial spymaster. And their relationship changes from friendly talk over dinner to "I'll give you information in exchange for looking at." What has Damon been doing? Well, it's true that he's married, but now that she's hurt in a riding accident, he's back to being single. So, he goes after Lena Valerian, who is almost engaged to his brother, but she can handle him. She also writes about dragons. These two are happy together, but tragedy hits again when Lena gives birth, and she dies in a blaze of glory. Targ style, cars herself. So, at the funeral, Damon and the rest of the Tarrian family get together to mourn the deaths of their loved ones. Like Will Ferrell says in the movie Wedding Crashers, grief is nature's most powerful aphrodisiac. Because 10 years after they almost had a fling as teenagers, they finally make out on the beach. Another Tarrian is doing something bad. This is Alicent's second son, who wants to tar. He has a chip on his shoulder because the other kings have picked on him for not having a. But since his aunt has died, he thinks that her dragon is up for grabs to whoever claims it first. And her dragon is pretty old. It's Vegr, one of the original 3 and an absolute unit. But Aemon with balls of steel like, "Hey girl, I'm going to ride you." Yip. And, oh, it's time for the dragon to fly. Oh, this kid is crazy. And the dragon will get attached to the first person who rides him. So Layman's got a dragon. Alina's girls are very angry that he took their mom's dragon. But he says, "Hey, losers, if you sleep, you lose." So, the kids fight with their cousins, which is fun until someone gets hurt. And their mothers didn't like each other to begin with. Alicent is now very angry, so she gets the knife and goes to cut out one of their eyes. It's like, hey, Alicent and her kids can go to hell. we're the real Targ, you and I. It's like, hey, if we got married, no one would question my rule because I'm a woman, because you'd be king next. Damon is definitely in, but he's like, dude, you're still married. In Westeros, people don't split up. Lear will need to die. Damon Tarrian puts his murder coat back on. He works out a deal with Lena's boyfriend at the time. When the guards show up, Lane Ward has been pushed into the fire. I knew Damon was a bad guy, but Rainier, I thought you were better than that. What's this, though? Who is it? Rowing the boat to get away. Is it Valerian or Lane? Yes, they faked and set up his death. So, these two have to go live a quiet life, and Damon and Andra are free to get married. Yeah, after all these years, the time was finally right, and it's a really sweet love story that's a little bit about family. So, Rainier and Damon live happily on Dragonstone for 6 years, but the sea snake, Corlys Valerian, has been badly hurt, and Rainier's children aren't Lane Oars. I ought to. So Rhaena goes back to King's Landing, where her father, the king, was barely holding on. He couldn't have lived 6 more years. Yes, he did. Even though the king is out of action, he is still just about holding on. The high buildings are the real leaders. Allison, Dinner, Otto, your father. They can't be sure that Rhaena's kids aren't Lane Oars, but putting question in people's minds is good for their plan to put Allison's kids on the Iron Throne in the future. What is this, though? Who wants to come in now? The name is Old King Va, even though it's just an old man going across a room. The scene is epic because you can see how much he's into it. So, now that he has ruled in favor of Ramirez's son, Rain, this guy has no choice but to go all in and drop a B-bomb on the scumbags. Which, let's have Damon cut his head in half. Well, once he said it out loud, it became slander, so I guess he has the right to kill him. So, since this whole family is in town, Grandpa Vise makes an effort to stay up for the double engagement dinner. They're Brady bunching it to both run his kids to both Damon's girls. And at this point, the Targ and Valerian family trees have become a circle anyway, for the old king's sake. Everyone squashes the meat for the night. And until Grandpa goes to bed, it's a nice, happy Tarrian family dinner. Because the family fight has been passed on from one generation to the next. They don't get along, and the younger one is to blame. Amen. Who sets things off? Coming of age. Hit this guy hard. He has grown up to be a great fighter, and he looks really cool in his badass eye patch. He gives a speech praising his nieces, which is a nice thing to do until he calls them strong, which is, of course, their real father's last name. It starts a big fight. Again, Damon is like, "What are you, a cheap copy of me?" But Ammon says, "Oh no, I'm the better one." A short time later, Old King Vas finally dies. Allison, his faithful wife, was with him at the end when he was babbling incoherently but did say Aegon should be king. He was talking about Aegon the Conqueror, who was one of his ancestors. But that's what happens when you name all your children Aegon. So now she's like, hey, my son Aegon becoming king was his dying wish. The rest of the small group says, well, that's good, because we were going to do it anyway. Except for this one guy who's like, that's weird. He was always set on having Rainier as his heir. So Kristin Cole comes up and tells him to sit down. Oh, and he sat him down a little too hard. He killed this guy. Yeah, he's a repeat criminal. Now, it's like, bro, I gotta take your gun and badge. But the Lord Leader of the King's Guard is the one who takes off his white robe and says, yo, you guys are definitely up to no good. I'm not interested. Who is this Aegon, anyway? At least, is he a good person who will make a good king? Well, not really. At his best, he's kind of a douchey party boy. And at his worst, he likes to sexually attack castle workers and go to secret children fighting rings. So, they call all the lords together and say, hey, Rain, Ramirez out, Aegon in, bend the knee or you'll die. Aeris Tarrian is one of the VIPs here. He's being held as a hostage, but a king's guard comes in and says, hey, I'm getting you out of here. They don't get very far, though, because everyone in King's Landing is being rounded up for King Aegon's corona, and a gun didn't want to be king. He says, man, it's just going to be work. But now that people are cheering for him, he thinks, maybe I do want to be king. But Rainey sneaks downstairs because this big building where all these people are is the dragon pit. Yeah, she gets the hell out of there. Her dragon was right next to him. As a badass grandma move, she flies to Dragonstone to tell him the bad news. Your dad is dead, and the king has moved on. And this is a lot of stress for Rain, who is pregnant. In fact, oh no, something's wrong, and it's a third sad, graphic birth scene, but this time Rain does survive. Now, the King's Guard member who helped Rainey stay alive is, by chance, their twin brother Eric. However, Eric is choosing Rhaena. In fact, he sneaked out of the castle to steal her father's crown. And so here in front of a small group of friends and family, Rain Ramirez gets her crowning. At last, you are the queen. But before they fight, Oto Hightower comes to try to stop the fighting. Like, look, this doesn't have to get messy. If you bend Aegon Ren's knee, you can now claim the throne. You and your family can live happily and get their other houses and stuff. And the realm isn't thrown into civil war. They should kill Otto right now, Damon's of the mind. But Ramirez is like, well, let's give it. If we're going to have a civil war among the Targ, it won't just be between the Targ. You know the names Stark, Tully, Lannister, and Baratheon from Game of Thrones. On which side would they fight? Rhaenyra gets one strong friend right away because Corlys, Valerian the Sea Snake, survived his deadly wounds. At this point in time, they are one of the most powerful houses in Westeros, and their navy is probably the best. But the fact that this side has more might be even more important than having other friends. Andrew nearest kids Jason and Luke are like, hey, let's go as boys flying on our dragons instead of writing letters to remind everyone that we're the younger one. Luke, Storm's plane is given the shorter trip. Stop the home of the Baratheons. He gets there with his dragons. Super amazing. Unless there's already another dragon here that's bigger. Yes, Aemon wins this round. Like a cartoon in every way. This Lord Braddon is like, yeah, you're not that great, kid. Vi already decided. To side with Team Green. Luke is going home with nothing. But Aemon isn't going to let him off that easily. He doesn't like Luke very much because Luke cut his eye. In fact, he takes off his patch to prove it. He looks like a blue diamond was put in there. So Luke's like, no, I'm out of here. He starts to fly away in this storm. What is this huge cloud, though? Oh, Aemon. He brought him here on dragon. Yeah, Aemon is an absolute mad lad. Even though war hasn't been declared yet, he's ready to get it going. Luke's little dragon, man, just to blast this one with fire. But now Vhagar is really mad and flying after him out of control, and as Luke flies above the storm, it looks like he's safe. But oh, him, Aemon, not what I wanted to happen. It seems like he was just trying to scare him. But now he knows he did something wrong because Rhaenyra will find out that her son was killed when she hears the news. There is no longer any chance of peace, and Season 1 ends there. If you like this summary, click the follow button to get more of the best TV and movie summaries.